Okay, recording. Great stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, Chris, nice to see you again. Thanks for joining me for this second Q&A. I hope all is well. How things are going?
Yeah, no, it's been all right. It's not been a boring week. There's been some things to sort out as we've been going along, but no, I think generally everything's going well.
Excellent, good stuff. Yeah, so I'm getting some good feedback from the school so far. So I think well done for you guys. So these sessions are always great because it gives me a chance as the SoCS rep rather than just type out emails, and the response is always a lot better. So I've got 5 or 6 separate points today to go to, and it'd be really great to get some of your thoughts and feedback on those points.
Cool. Yeah, just ask away.
All right, super. So we've just began the year, and attendance has been something that's always at the top of people's minds. And some people have noticed that the attendance system's recording people as missing their lectures. So I don't know if you could sort of extend or put anything sort of towards that, because only really the face-to-face are being recorded. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So the only thing that's been attendance monitored is the face-to-face sessions. Whether that continues to be the case, I don't know at the moment. I mean, Teams spits out loads of data, so in theory we could attendance monitor through Teams. I think Blackboard Collaborate does something similar. But no, it should only be the face-to-face sessions that are attendance monitored. Now, because there were some challenges in the timetable last week, it might be that something between what you were seeing and actually the attendance system isn't quite aligned. If you think it's wrong, your best bet is to email the admin team, so SoCSadmin at link.ac.uk. Just be aware that they're dealing with a lot of quite urgent bits and pieces at the moment, so it might just take them a little while to get back to you. But we are aware that there was some challenges in that first week, so I wouldn't worry that if your attendance profile isn't looking what you expect, don't worry about it. We're not going to hold it against you. You know, there were challenges there beyond the scope of technology or reason. So now, you know, I know attendance is something students worry about. I absolutely understand that. I appreciate that. I always say it's not your attendance that is, you know, I mean, you can turn up and fall asleep in a session, right? And that's less useful than being engaged with that session. So if you were there and you were engaged, and just don't worry about it. We will there'll be we'll look at this first week with a level of rationality, right? We are aware that there were some problems.
Well, that's good to know. I think a few people have experienced some things. It's always to be expected as things start off. But I think it took a few people by surprise, and I got them to ask the question. So that's a great clarification. Another couple of guys have raised some issues to me about hardware, and they've got because they're offline now pretty much for 80% of their lectures. Some of their personal computer equipment isn't quite up to scratch. They're having some troubles with it. I understand the university can do some things for these guys, but they may or may not live on campus. Is there anything that you can sort of help us with or expand on what those guys could do to support themselves from a hardware perspective?
The best thing you can do in the immediate, so there's nothing we do in the school, but in the immediate, contact the student support centre. So there is still an equipment loan scheme if you qualify for that. But yeah, I mean, I don't understand the machinations of how that system works. But all I know is it's administered by the student support centre. So if you contact them, obviously they'll talk you through what needs to be done.
Yeah.
The one thing I would say as well is if this relates to assignments, again, you've got these pooled sessions, and the best piece of advice I've been giving everyone is use that for what you think you need that power for. Use that time for what it's used best for. So if you've got great hardware at home, you're not too worried about using equipment for working on assignments. There's going to be other people in your pooled session in that same circumstances. Create a group and develop a little group project, right? I mean, for example, if you're a game student, I would be very tempted to stick your hand up in the air and say, does anyone want to build a game? spend 4 weeks building a really solid portfolio piece. If your hardware isn't quite up to scratch and you think, well, actually my graphics work, I need to use the GPU, then use that 4 hours over those 4 weeks to work solidly on that assignment. I mean, you've got, like I say, you've got these 4-week blocks. That's actually a lot of time on a computer. So focus it that way. That time is really for you to make the best use of it and to make, like I say, if that's working with people, then use that space for its people. If that's working through your CV, developing your kind of academic practice, then work with the academic in the room. There's an consider us part of the resource, part of the hardware that happens to be in that room. We are big fleshy pieces of hardware. Talk to us, ask us questions. You've also got the human resource of your peers. But we've put everything you need in that room, do a whole range of stuff. So just use it for what's best. And if its hardware is your challenge, use it for its hardware.
Yeah, that's a good point. I can imagine for year ones, it would be quite a good time to crack on with problem solving, because that's a team-based sort of activity. Year 2, team software engineering, probably be quite a good chance. And certainly year 3, I know from personal experience, we're trying to leverage that with regards. But from a hardware perspective, go see the guys on the campus who can support that, and they should be able to point you at least in the right direction. So on those face-to-face lectures that we've just touched on, so it's relatively new to everyone. People are having to go into these lecture spaces. There's now a clean up and a clean down process. There's mask process and things. I know what I think the students are doing from their perspective, from my personal perspective, but it's really great to hear from the lecturer's perspective how you think the students are doing, and is there anything that we could really do to improve, or you think there's something that we need to be?
Yeah. Okay. So I don't. So in my mind, people are doing really well. Actually, I mean, I turned up on campus on Wednesday, and people were walking around in masks. They were carefully social distancing. I mean, I bumped into one guy in a corridor, and we were so careful to social distance that we were doing that kind of, which way are you going, which way do I go? And it's actually nice to see people pay so much attention to that. I mean, the 3 things that we've noticed that could potentially be a little bit better. All the labs have an entrance and an exit. Make sure you're going in the right one. Because of the way the card system works, we can't actually lock out the doors from only letting you in one way. So if you swipe your card, it will let you in through the exit. Just, there's a big sign on the door. Just if it says exit, don't walk through it. So that could be a little bit better. Crowding around the hand sanitizers and stuff. We appreciate there's only, we don't have individual hand sanitizers for every computer, so you've got to use the one at the start. Just be mindful of that, and just give that person in front of you just a couple of seconds to do the hand sanitizers, grab their wipes, and get out the way. Realistically, that's not going to be too much of a drive. What I've told everyone in my group to do, and I think this is general good advice, don't worry about getting in that room bang on the hour. Right. Give yourself 15 minutes. Assume that you've got a few minutes at the beginning of the session and that you are using that time to safely enter, safely sanitize, safely wipe down your machine. And if you take that approach, that doesn't mean, stay in bed 15 minutes longer and rock up, at that time. It just means just arrive for the time that you would. But if there's a queue, just wait a little while. Just maintain that, yes, 1 meter plus, but try for 2 meters if you can. I mean, it's there's a level of this where just do your best. I mean, in my first session, I stood there and everybody walked in the room. I said, sanitize your hands, grab a wipe down your kit, and I kind of expected I would have to do that because it's this first time in the lab, right? It is going to be, you're going to have to get used to these new habits. But everyone did. No one complained about it. I didn't have anyone saying, "Oh, hand sanitizer, that's not for me." So no, it was fine. It was generally really good. The one bit of feedback I have had is people who've come up to the front to ask questions. Just remember, to maintain a bit of social distancing. Don't need to necessarily get right up in somebody's grill just to ask them what do you want. Or I mean, this is a thing, I mean, with the masks, everyone's a bit more muffled.
Yes.
Speaking a bit louder is useful. And one thing you can do, for example, is if you are struggling to talk through the mask and people are struggling to hear you, you could even just set up a quick Teams call just for that room or Teams chat session. And you could be sending messages via the chat and responding verbally. If you're really quiet, you can send it via text. So there are solutions to this, and I think this is the advantage of having one academic per each session. We're going to get to know what each individual person's specific challenges are. But if you're really struggling to hear someone, tell them. No one is going to be annoyed. No one's going to take an offense if you have some sort of needs. Or if you need to communicate in a slightly different way. The best we can do for everyone is, and again, it comes back to these kind of ideals of being open, transparent community. Just give us ideas. I mean, you thought of something we haven't, so just let us know.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because we're obviously in the bubble group and it's going to stay consistent. The bubble's a consistent group that you're in. So setting up an additional support network via Teams or the Discord or whatnot is probably a really good idea. Something a little bit different. On the subject of bubbles, we hear in the news things where COVID and things are getting a little bit more, the rates getting a little bit higher. It'd be really good to sort of get your perception on how the bubbles work, and just to really sort of hone in on that, because as things become very much more real, it'd be nice to sort of get ahead of that. So, can you offer some clarification on that, on how the bubbles work as a whole? That'd be really good.
Yeah, well, I mean, we are fortunate because of the nature of our subject that we've been able to do this kind of pooled approach. Not all subjects can do that just because their nature. I mean, ultimately, we're computer scientists. We need a computer and a desk, and that's what we need. We don't need specific specialized equipment. We're not dissecting anything or. So we have this advantage that we can put single teaching bubbles in. And that does mean if we had to, we can take a group kind of out of circulation. We can, we could merge groups. We could stand one down. I mean, there is, for example, that there's a situation where we had an error where we had an academic who couldn't arrive to their bubble on time. We can still do things with that. We could, because we know everyone in the morning session is doing the same, is from the same year. We've got computers, we've got screens. We could even stream the person who's in the room next door. There's a lot we can do with that. But I think keeping those isolated bubbles, I mean, that's the best that we could do. But it's also, from my perspective, you use up so much time doing the initial walk-in, sanitizing, wipe down. If we broke this up in, say, 4 1-hour sessions rather than 1 4-hour session, well, those, 15 minutes at the beginning and 15 minutes at the end, you've actually only getting 2 hours out of your 4. Yeah. At least this, you're getting 3.5 hours out of your 4. There's an optimization in scale. But again, I mean, there's been information sent out via a Blackboard notification about the university's isolation and tracking processes. I'm just going to have to answer that, so I'm just going to stop the call and we'll re-record afterwards.
No problem, that's fine. Yeah.
So sorry about that, Garry. Of all the times for someone to call, it would happen to be when I was in recordings. Just somebody calling my little boy, so it was an urgent call. So sorry about that. So yeah, we just gone through the bubbles, and you just try and remember what the question we were on.
No, I think
clarification of the bubbles. So hopefully that answers the bubble question.
Yeah. I think it'll be something that will come up as we go further into the university or academic year. I hope it doesn't, but it may be. But that was a good overview so far. So thank you for that.
So the important thing to remember with these bubbles and these pooled sessions we've predicated everything that we've done around trying to be as safe and supportive as we can, creating as much time for students to get lab time, but doing that in as safe a way as possible. So safety has really been a primary concern. along with just making the program better. And actually, I mean, some of the stuff I've heard back from some of my colleagues and some student feedback already seems that some students are really maximizing the benefit out of these pooled sessions. We've had loads of interest in the CCNA stuff, the Cisco certifications from Yvonne.
Yeah.
Derek's been working through some IoT stuff already. I've already had a few students contact me about some project ideas that they want to work through, and that's the kind of thing I want to see more of, right? It's that's really exciting.
Yeah. That's really good stuff. It's good for the CCNA and everything as well. A lot more visibility, and using that 4 hours to jump on that. That's perfect time to do those things as well. Certainly the MTAs and things like that with Derek. So that's really great. On the sort of a segue question, when we have the pooled sessions, we have the first 30 minutes worth of getting a code that we have to enter. You mentioned earlier on that, don't worry about arriving dead on the hour, 15 minutes, say something later. If a student happens to arrive, say, an hour later, if they sort of contact their their sort of supervisor in that pool, are they able to get sort of allocated attendance for that session, or how does that work?
It doesn't really work that way. So, apart from anything else, we have one system that needs to, as best as it can, work for the whole university, right? We're the only school that are doing sessions that are this long,
Yeah.
where you do have this kind of not casuality, but this ability to kind of adapt those sessions to your needs. And I've said to my own, you know, it's there for you to make as best advantage as you can. However, because this system is working for everyone, originally, by the way, the system only allowed the code to be entered for the first 15 minutes.
Oh,
We have had that extended to 30 minutes again because of this kind of wipe down process and to give you a chance to arrive safely. But no, ultimately the attendance is counted in that first half an hour.
okay,
So
good
you
to know.
need to be in and there to type that in. That's not something. It doesn't sit within the school.
Mm,
Um, I it's if we were to design a system perfect for the way that we were doing it, it would be a slightly different system. That being said, we are doing so in the classic SoCS fashion. We've done something so off-piste to the rest of the institution. Um, so again, I would ask students as best as they can support us with that. Arrive within the first, try and arrive within the first 15 minutes. Be aware that you can only register within the first half an hour.
mm,
Um, but again, it's it's about making the most of that session. And if
yeah.
you're arriving an hour late, you're not going to make the most of that session anyway. Because the big thing is, right, we're not going to wait for you to arrive to deliver those slides.
Mm,
And those slides where we put in all our weekly updates, where we're trying as best as we can to deliver as much useful information as possible, pastoral stuff, the stuff in group work and things like that. You're going to miss all of that if you turn up an hour late.
yeah.
So I would say that's the thing that we're really monitoring attendance for. Have
Mhm.
you been there? Have you seen that content? If you've
Mm,
arrived an hour late, you haven't.
no.
So you should be marked absent.
Yeah.
Um,
Good point.
which is it. Yeah, I agree. It's not the system. It is the system that it is, and we need to work within it.
Mm, okay. All right. Thank you. On the pooled sessions, some people have experienced some challenges on their timetables. I think I can recall 3 or 4, maybe even 5 or 6. Is that still going, or is that something do you feel has been changed now, and the guys can expect that to be sort of firmed up or concrete?
I hope there were nobody had 6 on there, but I mean, I know there was a few. Again, this is a kind of a case of we've never done anything like this before, and there was some sort of mismatch of information there that we wouldn't have seen unless we'd gone through every single 850 student individually, and there was no way to pick that up otherwise. Once we found out that was the case, Victoria, bless her, went through every single student individually, did a reallocation. That should all be fixed now. If it isn't for you, my advice stays the same. If you have more than one session, pick one, go to that. It is just you should only have one session. You don't need to come in more than that. Um, but do check your timetable regularly. As far as I understand, everyone should be fixed now. If you're not, email socsadmin at lincoln.ac.uk, usual admin email address, and we'll look into that for you.
Okay, brilliant. So Chris, you know, I've not got any more questions in my question deck at the moment, so it's great to have this weekly catch up with you. We do appreciate all the effort that you guys put in, and you guys are responding within about an hour on many questions that we've got. So it's really positive so far. So thanks for that, and please thank the team from all students as well.
I
So,
will do. And it's kind of saying back at the students. I mean, I've put this in both the kind of big blackboard announcements I've wrote, but this stuff only works. And I always think one of the biggest resource, the biggest advantage we have in SoCS is that we do have a community. There is a general belief that we're all pulling in the same direction, right? You know, and maybe not always, maybe not always best as we can. I do think the SoCS community is one of the most valuable things that we have. And actually, the feedback that's been coming in has been really useful. There has been some critical feedback, of course, you know, but I think also from what I've seen from the emails I've been sent and stuff, people are accepting that we're not going to get everything right from the first go and that we are learning, we are adapting. And that feedback, critical and positive and everything in between, is so valuable and it's what we need, and I'm so glad to see that coming in. And I've been amazed about, you know, it's nice to see the amount of positive feedback that's coming. The online sessions seem to be picked up really well. The engagement with them has been absolutely fantastic. It's nice to see. I mean, one of the things with this kind of chat channel, the students who I know as really quiet students who don't usually kind of talk up in lectures, who are jabbering away really quite happily in the chat. And part of me says, you know, my job now is thinking when we go back to face, how do I keep this? How do I keep this cool aspect of this and apply it to the good aspects of that? And it's going to be this constant evolution. But without that feedback flow, that doesn't happen. So it's really good to see that the students have engaged with that so well. But the other what I'd like to say, and you know, and pass this down is, give yourself time for self-care. Make sure you're looking after yourself. Check in with your friends. This is, but especially if you are a person who's having to shield or isolate for whatever reason, that is going to be. I mean, they call it isolation for a reason, right? It's isolating. Don't stop being a community. Keep looking. Just think of some really simple things that you can do to kind of, you know, give yourself a break, give yourself a bit of mental capacitance to kind of carry on. Try and avoid things like worrying about things overnight and emailing late at night and stuff. You know, make sure you say, right, I'm turning off the computer at this time and I'm going to go away. I'm going to cook myself a meal. I'm going to go to a slightly different computer and play some video games. I'm going to pick up the phone. I'm going to call my friends and family or whatever. Just because we're doing a lot of teaching and learning stuff online, a lot of teaching and learning stuff by the computer, don't let that, you know, always take that time to care for yourself and care for those around you. Again, as I've always said, the community is the strength of SoCS. Use it. You know, we've got that common room site set up. I'll say if I'm going to jump into a game of Rocket League or whatever, I'm going to be posting all my gamer taggers and stuff, and people can come play Rocket League with me. Give yourself a break. Is the best piece of advice I can give everyone at the moment. Everyone is doing so well. I'm so proud of the whole school, and it's absolutely what we need at the moment. But don't lose that time for self care.